Okay, guys, so let's get to start today's Rechet Boacha. Ari, nachon?
Yeah.
Baruch haba.
No.
Naim mod.
I can do English pretty well.
Oh, great. So it's a pleasure to have Ari with us. Thank you for coming, joining us.
Ari, you want to get Mara?
You're invited.
Unfortunately, I got done.
Okay.
Welcome to join us any morning. We have the Daf and minions. Pleasure. Okay, so we are on we're in Masechet Menachos, and we were let's start again from the Mishnah just to get the flow of it all. We're dealing with the Karban Toda. What's unique about the Karban Toda is that it's an animal accompanied with 40 loaves. The loaves are prepared actually in Beis Pagi, in this bakery outside of the Beis Hamikdash, and then brought in to the Beis Hamikdash together with the animal. And what happens with the loaves is a little bit different than what's a normal Karban Mincha. Normal Karban Mincha, there's some of it that goes into the Mizbeach, onto the fires of the Mizbeach, but here with the Karban Toda, a share of the loaves, 10%, 4 out of the 40, are given to Kohanim to eat, and the other 36 are eaten by the owner. So what consecrates the loaves, what makes them kadosh, is not being placed in a klisharis, in a holy vessel, but rather the shchita, the slaughtering of the animal, of the Karban Toda, is what makes the loaves holy. So now the Mishnah says, let's start again with Ayin Chesed Beis, Shachta chutz l'zmana. Let's say the animal was slaughtered, but while doing the slaughtering, it was messed up. There was a declared intent that that the animal would be eaten chutz l'zmana. Welcome. Do you need a pair of tefillin? Ari, do you want a pair of tefillin? Anybody need a pair of tefillin?
We have an extra.
Yeah, we have extras here in the shul. Thank you so much for coming, guys. Welcome. Bruchim habayim. Todah lachem. So we learned that shachta chutz l'zmana, if the slaughtering of the animal was done with an intent to eat it at the wrong time, so that makes it pickle. But that's what we call davar shepsulo b'mikdash, something which the disqualification is starting in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple. So therefore, since it was good before, it was just disqualified now, therefore it still makes the loaves holy. So shachta chutz l'zman, if it was slaughtered with the intent of out of time, or chutz l'mkoma, with the intent to eat it at the wrong place, kiddush halechem, the loaves became holy, because since it's something which is only disqualified through the at the moment of it's in the temple, it does become holy. However, shchata v'nimtzeis treifa, if he slaughters it and it turns out as he's examining it that there's a hole in the lung, it's a treifa, it's not a kosher animal, so that means that there's a disqualification from before the moment of slaughtering. It had really been disqualified before they even made it into the mikdash. So then, lo kiddush halechem, then the bread was not made holy. Shachta v'nimtzeis ba'al smum. Let's say it was slaughtered and it turns out that it has a blemish. Rabbi Lezer Omer kiddush. Rabbi Lezer says that the bread is holy. Chachamim lo kiddush. The Chachamim say the bread is not holy. That doesn't seem to make sense, because if we just said if it was slaughtered and you found that it's a treifa, the bread is not holy, because that's a disqualification from before it got to the temple. So if it was a ba'alat mum, if it had a blemish, it's also been disqualified before it got into the temple. So the Gemara is going to address that question. Shachta shelo l'shma. Let's say the animal, the Toda, was slaughtered for the wrong holiness. It was slaughtered as ola. It was slaughtered as asham. V'chein ela miluim. Or let's say it's the ram of miluim, v'chein shniksev seatzeres, or the 2 sheep of shavuos, which have to consecrate the shtei alechem, the 2 loaves. Sheshachta shelo l'shma. If they're slaughtered for the wrong holiness, lo kiddush halechem, then the bread was not made holy. Says the Gemara, Masnisin Mani, who's the view of our Mishnah? Answer the Gemara, Rabbi Meir, it's the view of Rabbi Meir. The time went in a brisa. Ze'aklal, this is the general rule. Kol shepisulo kodem shchita, if it had been disqualified with the disqualification before the slaughtering, then lo kiddush halechem, then the slaughtering doesn't make the bread holy. Pisulo achar shchita, but if it had a disqualification only from the slaughtering and on, then kiddush halechem, then the bread becomes holy. Therefore, shachta chutz l'zmana, slaughtering of the wrong time, that's a disqualification of after it's in the temple. That's when the disqualification first starts. Or chutz l'koma, or slaughtering with an intent to eat at the wrong place. Again, kiddush alechem, those acts of slaughter would make the bread holy. But shchat of nimtzis treifa, if he slaughtered it, and as he's examining it, he finds that there's a hole in the lung, so it was really never kosher. It was a treifa, lo kiddush alechem, that did not make the bread holy. Shachtav and nimtzis bal asmum. He slaughtered it, and it turns out that it is a blemished animal. So Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kiddush. Rabbi Eliezer says the bread is still holy. The bread was made holy through this act of slaughter. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Lo Kiddush. And Yeshua said the bread was not made holy through this act of slaughter. Divrei Rabbi Meir. This is the view of Rabbi Meir. So that's really like our Mishnah. Now we've discovered the time of our Mishnah. Because what did we say in our Mishnah? Shachta chutz l'zmana. If it was slaughtered with the intent of at the wrong time. Shachta chutz l'mkoma. Slaughtered with the intent of the wrong place. Since that's a disqualification that's first starting in the temple, it's not that that's revealing that beforehand there was a problem. This is a problem starting here. So therefore, kiddush alechem, that made the bread holy. But shachtav nimtzeit treifa, slaughtered, and it turns out that it really had a hole inside of it. That is, it's a slaughtering that shows that there had been a disqualification before. So something which shows that there was a disqualification before, that does not does not sanctify the bread. That's showing that there was a problem always before. If there was a problem always before, then the bread is not made holy. And that's the view of Rabbi Meir. Okay, now, we have now the next view. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Again, Rabbi Meir says that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua argue about shchatav and nimtzeis bal asmum. In the Mishnah, it's Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim arguing. But again, it's basically the same thing. So here it's called Rabbi Yoshua. In the Mishnah, it was the Chachamim, all the sages. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer has identified both places saying the same thing. However, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo nechleku Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, al shashachtav v'nim says treifa shelo kidesh. Rabbi Yehuda says, even Rabbi Eliezer would agree that if it was slaughtered and it turns out that it was a treifa, which means that it's been disqualified from before, it will not make the bread holy. They agree to that. All of them agree to that. And everybody agrees it's slaughtered with the intent temple. Kiddush alechem, it makes the bread holy. Now, what we said in our Mishnah, that they have an argument about if it was slaughtered and it turns out blemished. No, everybody agrees shelo kiddush. Everybody agrees if it's slaughtered and it turns out that it's blemished. Of course, it didn't make it holy because that means there was a disqualification from before the temple. Alman nechleku. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, what's the argument between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua? Something else. Al chutz l'mekomo, slaughtered with the intent of eating it at the wrong time. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kiddush. Rabbi Eliezer says, when he slaughters with the intent of eating it at the wrong time, it does become holy. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Lo Kiddush. Rabbi Yeshua says, if it was slaughtered with the intent that it be eaten at the wrong time, he does not make it holy. It didn't make it holy. So Rabbi Eliezer says, we know that if you slaughter with the intent of eating it at the wrong time, so that's a disqualified act of slaughter, and the animal actually becomes contaminated as pigul. If you slaughter it with the intent to eat it at the wrong place, it also is a disqualified act of slaughter. So just like slaughtering with the intent of the wrong time does make the bread holy, so therefore slaughtering with the intent of the wrong place is like slaughtering with the intent of the wrong time. It should also make the bread holy. Says the Gemara, that's the view of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua, this is all Rabbi Yehuda speaking. Rabbi Yeshua says, no. Slaughtering with the intent of eating at the wrong place is disqualified. Ubalmum pasel, and slaughtering with the intent, and slaughtering and turning out that it's blemished is also disqualified. So ma balmum lo kidesh. Just like slaughtering and it turns out that it's blemished does not consecrate the bread. Afchutzlim komo lo kidesh. So to slaughtering with the intent of eating at the wrong place, that's Rabbi Yehuda speaking. Rabbi Eliezer says to Rabbi Yeshua, I'm comparing the act of chutzlim komo, of out of time, to out of place. And that's why I say it does consecrate the bread. You're comparing the act of out of time to blemished, and that's why you're saying it doesn't consecrate the bread. But why don't we examine and see what's it more similar to? If you'll agree to me that a slaughtering of out of time is more similar to a slaughtering of out of place, then you should concede it should have the same status as the slaughtering of out of time, and the slaughtering of out of place should consecrate the bread. But if you're right that out of place is like a blemished animal, then let's compare it to a blemished animal, and let's say it doesn't consecrate the bread. So now let's go through it. So Rabbi Lezer started to make the comparisons. Someone who slaughters with the intent of eating at the wrong time, that's a problem in thinking. It's a disqualified thought. It's a psul of machshava. If he slaughters and it turns out that the thing is a broken leg, it's not a problem of thought. It's a problem of the physical structure. It's very different. So what should we be comparing? Should we be comparing a disqualification created by thoughts to a disqualification created by thoughts? We shouldn't say that slaughtering with intent to eat at the wrong place is, somehow, comparable to a slaughtering and you find that the animal's blemished. That's blemished animal is not a problem of thought. That's something that's already been a problem. We can't compare psul machshava, a disqualification of thought, to a disqualification that is in the body. So Rabbi Yeshua said, no, I do think that it's actually chutzlim komo, a thought slaughtering with the intent of eating it at the wrong place, is actually similar to slaughtering and finding that it's blemished. Because danim psul shein bo kares, psul shein bo kares. If someone slaughters with intent to eat it at the wrong place, the animal doesn't become contaminated. If anyone else now eats from the animal, he wouldn't get kares. Same thing if kares. There's no death penalty in eating it. It was just wrong. But that shouldn't be comparable to slaughtering with intent of eating at the wrong time. That's a disqualification with a kares penalty attached to it. And furthermore, once we're saying let's compare it mishalo l'shmo. Let's compare it to somebody who slaughters the animal, let's say a toda, with the wrong intent. So instead of slaughtering the toad as a toda, he slaughters the toad as an asham. Shepsul machshava, that's again a disqualification born of thoughts, not a disqualification in the body. Ve'ein bo kares, it's the type of disqualification that doesn't make the meat now something that were you to eat it, you would get karet for it. And it does not consecrate the loaves. It doesn't make the bread holy. Rabbi Yeshua should not make the loaves holy. Mishasek Rabbi Lezer, according to this brisa, Rabbi Lezer was quiet. He didn't have a response. Okay, so that's the brisa. So how did we get to the brisa? We had the Mishnah. The Gemara says, who's the view of the Mishnah? Rabbi Meir. Because Rabbi Meir has one version of what Rabbi Lezer and others disagree about, and he has, one set of opinions. So it works with Rabbi Meir. It doesn't work with Rabbi Yehuda's version of what's going on. Okay, so now going back to the Gemara.
At the end of the day, if any of them is not correct, then the whole thing is pasul, right? Is that what you're saying, Rabbi? Like the timing and the place, and also the...
Well, slaughtering with the intent to eat at the wrong place, or with the intent to eat at the wrong time, or with the wrong sanctification intent, those all disqualify a carbon, but there's a difference between them. If you slaughter with the intent to eat at the wrong time, the carbon also becomes contaminated. And now anyone who would eat from this carbon would get karet. Whereas if slaughtered with the wrong, wrong intent...
Holy or no?
So this is the question. What would make bread holy? If it's slaughtered correctly, of course the bread becomes holy through the act of slaughtering. If it's slaughtered with an intent of the wrong time, also the bread is holy. What about slaughtering with intent of the wrong place? So according to Rabbi Meir, the bread is holy. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's an argument between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Slaughtering it with the wrong sacrifice certainly does not make the bread holy.
So which one is holy, kosher LaPesach? Which opinion?
None of this is going to be kosher LaPesach. None of this is going to go on the Mizbeach because the animal's gone.
Uh-huh. Okay. The Shlo Shma doesn't make the bread sanctified.
Correct.
But the animal is sanctified, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a chaltas.
That's right.
But it's
exactly. The animal. That's
but
right.
It doesn't power through to the bread.
But
it's
interesting. That's right. Good point. Very good point. Now, going back to these different opinions, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Asks the Gemara, let's go to the Rabbi Meir's version, or in other words, just our Mishnah. There's a problem here. I mentioned it as we went through the Mishnah. If he slaughters the animal and finds that it's a treifa, so we say, okay, that's a disqualification from before the act of slaughter, and therefore the bread never became holy. So then why do we have the view of Rabbi Lezer who says that if it's slaughtered and it turns out to be a blemished animal, that the bread is holy? Why would the bread be holy? What's the difference between a blemished animal versus finding that it's a treifa? Either way, you've discovered that there's a disqualification from before the time it became holy, from before it came into the mikdash, it was disqualified. So the Gemara answers, when we talk about Ba'al Asmum, that's the question, is this really considered a blemish? The dukin sheba'ayin. We're talking about something in the eye. How do they translate dukin sheba'ayin? A cataract. Okay, so the point of a cataract is two things here. Number one, it's a passing blemish. It's going to heal. And number two, it's really not that recognizable. Right? It's coming and it goes, and it's going to go. And number two, it's really not recognizable. So that's not considered blemished from before the shechita. And basically this is the view of Rabbi Akiva, who says in Masechta Zvachim that cataracts, if they go onto the Mizbeach, b'di eved, are kosher. If you have an animal with a cataract and you put it onto the Mizbeach, you wouldn't have to take it off the Mizbeach. So basically it is somewhat holy through the act of slaughtering. So since it's somewhat holy through the act of slaughtering, it's not called an act of slaughtering on something which was already disqualified from before it became into the holy, and therefore it does make the bread holy.
Rabbi, why they don't check the animal first, shech it, make sure everything
They did,
kosher,
they did.
and then bring the bread?
They did.
They did.
They did, but what happens if they made a mistake? They overlooked something. But that was the right thing. They would do that. That's
Or happen simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
That's right. According to Rabbi Akiva, Dahmer, who says, Im alu lo yerdu, that when there's an animal with such a slight blemish, a cataract, if it's over, number one, it's a passing blemish. Veino nikar, number two, it's not noticeable. It's not something disqualified before slaughter. Savak Rabbi Akiva, Dahmer b'Masechta Zvachim. He holds like Rabbi Akiva says in Zvachim, Im alu lo yerdu. Such a small blemish, if it goes onto the altar, stays there. Since they're not going to come off the altar, kadosh koldu, because it is somewhat holy. Therefore, lo chashiv psulo kodem shchita. It's not considered something which. That's why it made the bread holy.
So anything with the help of medication is not blemish anymore.
What do you mean by that?
If it's cataract, for example, is the medicine and it becomes
Maybe.
perfect.
Yeah, maybe
Right?
that's not. That's right.
Okay.
We're going to learn more about that in Chulin. Rabbi Yoshua, what was his thinking if he disagrees with Rabbi Elazar? In our mission, it's called the Chachamim who disagree with Rabbi Elazar. What are they saying? If we're talking about cataracts, so then Rabbi Elazar's logic is right. It's not really such a disqualification. If it's not such a disqualification, the slaughtering should make the bread holy. He'll tell you, no, Ki Am Rabbi Akiva Malalo Yerdu Psulut Gufe. Rabbi Akiva will tell you that it became holy, the body of the animal became holy, that if it goes onto the altar, it doesn't come down. But to say that it became so holy that it could even make the bread holy, that not. Okay. Itmar we learned. Chatas sheshchata chutz lizman. Let's say a carbon chatas was slaughtered with intent to eat it at the wrong time. Im also lo tered. If it goes onto the mizbeach, it doesn't come off because it's pigul. Now, even though pigul is terrible, if you eat from pigul, you get kares. But pigul, the Torah uses interesting language. It says lo yeratzeh. There's some type of success with the pigul. So it means that there was some level of success, and therefore also lo tered. If it goes up, it doesn't come down. And that's what we said. Since it's somewhat holy, also it makes the bread holy. Chutz l'mkoma, if you slaughter the chatas with the intent of to eat at the wrong place, and then you put it on the mizbeach, Rava Amar tered. Rava says it has to come down off the mizbeach. Rabba Amar lo tered. Rabba says it doesn't have to go down. So Rava, what's pshat? Rava Rabbi Yeshua. Rava holds like Rabbi Yeshua. So just like Rabbi Yeshua says that a slaughtering of out of time of a toda is like finding it that it's really a balmum and it doesn't consecrate the bread. So he'll say that a slaughtering of out of time of a chatas is like a Baal moment, imaloterit. And Rabba, who said lo terit, Kirbelezer, who holds that slaughtering of out of time is like slaughtering of out of does not come down. And then v'hadar be Rabba legabe de Rava. Ultimately, Rabba, reneged on his ruling and accepted Rava's ruling, because in the end of this brisa, in the end of the brisa, Rabbi Lezer says, I don't have an answer to you, Rabbi Yeshua. So once that happened, so Rabba also conceded to Rava. Ikadami, another version was, even though Rabbi Lezer doesn't have any answer to all of Rabbi Yeshua's proofs, that chutzlim komo, the slaughtering of out of time, is like balmum. Even though Rabba Lagabe Rava lo hadarbe, but Rabba, who said something about chutzlim komo in regards to a chatas, did not change his mind to Rava. Because he'll tell like this: there, the ultimate answer is because let's derive it from a slaughtering of shalol lishmo. But in regards to chatas, if you compare slaughtering with the intent of eating chutzlim komo to slaughtering shalol lishmo, a chatas, this gets to David's point, a chatas slaughtered for the wrong carbon, im also lo terit, right? If it was slaughtered with the intent of shalol lishmo, im also lo terit. If it was slaughtered shalol lishmo, still if it goes up on the mizbeach, it doesn't come down. So since it doesn't come down, if it actually went up onto the mizbeach, therefore here too, Rabba holds, if it was slaughtered chutzlim komo, if it goes up, it doesn't come down. Okay, then finally the point of the Mishnah was that if the toda was slaughtered shalol lishma, then the bread is not consecrated, shchata shalol lishma. We saw that there was a pasuk for this yesterday. Rav Papa said, we can ask, Shavak Tana Didan El Nazir Deshchiach. Our Tana leaves the ram of Nazir, which is something which happens a lot, the Naked El Miluim, and he talks about slaughtering the ram of Miluim, which doesn't happen a lot, only happened then when we consecrated the Mishkan. So the Gemara says, okay, Vatana Didan, Iker Mil Sonakat. The Tana says that since the first carbon brought with bread was the Miluim, so that's where he set the law that if Shachta Shalol Lishma, the bread is not consecrated. Okay, we're up to the next Mishnah. Medina, you can join us again. You finished putting on tefillin. So we're up to the next Mishnah, Nesachim. Okay, moving on now from Karban Toda to Nesachim, to the wine that accompanies Karbanos. The wine would accompany an Ola or a Shlamim. Hanesachim shekitshu b'kli. So the wine that was made holy by putting it into a holy vessel. Then v'nimtza zevach pasel. And it turns out that the Ola that it's to accompany, or the Shlamim that it's to accompany, is disqualified. So im yesh zevach acher, that doesn't ruin the wine. If you have in the Beis HaMikdash another Ola, bring this wine with that Ola. Let's say this wine came with an Ola. The Ola turns out to be disqualified. And you had to spend an entire night until you got a new Ola. Now it's too late to use the wine. Yifsalu Belina, since the wine was in a holy vessel, and the holy vessel made it holy. Once it's holy, it gets disqualified through 24 hours, through Lina, or through Yotze, or being taken out of the Azara. Says the Gemara.
Does it have to be in the Kli before he is Makadosh Korban, or should you just wait? If you do the Torah or whatever?
Yeah, he had to.
Oh, he had to have it there.
Yeah. Amar Ziri said, Ein Nesachim Miskadshin El B'Shchita Sazevach. He says, Nesachim, the wines only become disqualified through the slaughtering of the carbon that they are accompanying. My time of why? Because the pasuk says, Zevach u'nesachim. A slaughtered animal with nesachim, through the slaughtering it becomes holy. Asks the Gemara, what about our Mishnah? So now we learned, Ha-nesachim shekatchu b'klivim to zevach pasol, im yesh zevach acher, yikruvu ima. Nesachim that were made holy in a vessel, and the carbon that they're supposed to accompany turns out to be pasol. So then you bring another zevach for this wine. V'im lanu, and if you have to spend the night, you pasol ulina, they become disqualified through 24 hours. My lavdiv so b'shchita. presumably we're talking about where there was a problem in the carbon, in the shchita. So it never became holy through the shchita. So Gemara says, no, according to Zeiri, lo de'ifsal bezrika. The shchita was done right. So that's why they became holy, because it was both a holy vessel and a shchita. And then in the throwing of the blood, there was a disqualification. Gemara says, Kiman, who's this view of Zeiri that holds, who's he following, that he holds that the sachim only become holy through the slaughtering of the carbon? It's Kirabi. It's like the view of Rabbi. The Hamar Shnei Dvarim Hamatirin. Mal and Zeh below here. Two items that are needed to make the meat permissible, namely slaughtering plus the throwing of the blood. Malin, they can each consecrate one without the other. So therefore, just the shchita can already consecrate the wine. Says the Gemara, Afilu Tema, even Rabbi Zev Rabbi Shimon. Even Rabbi Zev Rabbi Shimon could agree to this. And here, what are we talking about? Kigon Shakibel Daman Bakos, where the blood was caught in the cup. The Nishbach, and the blood was spilled. Rabbi Zev Rabbi Shimon Sabla Kabasi de Avua. And Rabbi Zev Rabbi Shimon may have held like his father, the Amar, who holds Kol Ha'omid Vizare Kizaruk Dami. When you have something about to be thrown, it's already considered thrown. So therefore, since it's already considered thrown, therefore just through the shchita, and now the blood being caught, it's as if it's already thrown. So that causes the wine to become holy. Amar Ma, we learned again in our Mishnah. Someone who comes to the Beis HaMikdash with his ola and with wine, he puts the wine into a holy vessel, and then the ola becomes disqualified. If there's another carbon, let go for that other carbon. Let it be brought with it. Ask Gemara, how could that work? We know that that's not true about oil. But didn't Rav Chizda teach us shemen shifrisho l'shum min chazeh? Oil that was put aside on mincha. So if it was put aside for this carbon mincha, and something happens to this mincha, something happens to the flour, you can't use this oil for another carbon mincha. So if that's true with oil, the same thing should be true about wine. Wine that was part of this ola, something that went wrong, you shouldn't be able to use the wine for another ola. So Amar Rabbi Yana said an amazing thing. Leiv bezdin masne alehen. The court, right, the Sanhedrin, they are buying all these things. They make a condition. They're saying, we're making the wine holy. Our holiness that we are imposing is a conditional holiness. Im hutzuchu, if it's going to be needed for this ola, then hutzuchu, it's holy as part of this ola. Im lav, and if it'll turn out that this ola is not going to need these wines because the ola is going to be disqualified, yuhula zevach acher, then they are to be used as part of a different sacrifice. So Gemara says there's a difference. Shemen gufin de minchu. Oil actually becomes part, whereas the wine is separate from the carbon. So when the wine is separate, that's where the Bezdin makes their condition. But the oil is different. So the Gemara asks, once they're making conditions, they can say, if it'll all work, it's going to be holy. If it's not going to work, it's not holy at all. Why say we'll use it for another mincha, or another carbon, for another different ola? So the truth is, they could do that. But they didn't want to. It's a gzeira. If they would make such a condition, people might not know of this condition, and people might think in general, things could be made holy in a holy vessel, and then being taken out and just used for something secular.
The balabas is dealing with the wine, it's not the Kohen.
This must be Korban Tzibur, right?
This is a carbon sibur, right? As Almog is pointing out, right? If we're saying that Bezdin made a condition, we're talking about a carbon of the nation. Let's say the carbon tamid every morning. So.
Right, so how they can screw it up then if it's the Kohanim doing it?
Well, things can go wrong, right? You have all these, a lot of theoretical discussions of what happens if we're to go wrong.
So Rabbi, the wine could be used for two different occasions? Is that what it is?
Well, if it's not working for what it was brought for, we'll use it for another such carbon.
Even though it
wasn't made holy for that carbon, it was made holy for this carbon, because it was a condition when it was made holy. It's holy for this carbon. If it gets used, if it doesn't get used, it'll be used for the next carbon.
So, for example, the leftover, yain from Friday night can be used for Havdalah.
Sure. I mean, there's a problem if you drink from it, it becomes pagum, you have to dilute it again. But in theory, yeah. But that's a different issue. That's not.
I understand, but for the two different occasions, that's what I'm talking about.
So now the Gemara says, 1 second, hashtanami, but even now that they made a condition that you could use the wine for one ola to a different ola, why don't you make a decree, Gzeira Shema Yomru, Nesachim Shefish L'Shem Zevach Zek Shem L'Shem Zevach Acher. Why don't you make a decree? People are going to think that wine can be for one ola, and if it doesn't work, you use it for another ola. They won't know that there was a condition here. Answer the Gemara. Hatani Matatya ben Yehuda. The answer is from what Matatya, the son of Yehuda, taught in a brisa. When we say that if this ola didn't work, they'll use the wine for another ola. At the same time that this one is slaughtered, there's another one being slaughtered. Since it's right away, people don't realize that, it was supposed to go for A, now it's going for B. They think it was initially put aside for B. So 1 second, but if you don't have another animal being slaughtered at this time, then what? Nifsa Belina, it gets disqualified because of 24 hours. So Adatani Seifa, so it gets disqualified. So then why do we say at the end, if it's spent 24 hours, it got disqualified.
Right.
You can say it gets disqualified right away if you don't have another animal. Just say right here. When can you use these nesachim for another carbon? When you have another animal slaughtered. But if you don't have another animal slaughtered, now it's no good. So when it says that's actually what it means. When that other animal was already slaughtered at that time. But if there's no animal slaughtered at that time, then the wine is disqualified, as if it spent 24 hours. Upsulin, and it is no good. So now ask the Gemara, does Rabbi Shimon hold Lev Bezdin Mas now Lamb that when a court makes something holy, they make conditions? Ravidi bar Avin, Rav Amram, Ravidi bar Avin said the name of Rav Amram, Rav Yitzchak, the name of Rav Yitzchak, Rav Yochanan, the name of Rav Yochanan. Let's say on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they have to start using the new half shekels, and they still have old sheep in the Lishkas HaKlaim, in the room of the sheep that they had bought for Karbanos Tamid. So what are you going to do with it? So Karbanos Tamid that are not needed anymore. So the Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Shimon, ain't niftin tmimit. You have to let them go blemish, then you sell them, and in that way the holiness gets removed. We don't say that the court made a condition when they were first consecrated, that if they'll be used, they're holy, and if they don't need to be used, they're not holy. But according to the Chachamim, they believe in this concept of Leiv Bezdin Masnei Aleim, that the court can make a condition and say we're making it holy if we need it. If we don't need it, it's not holy. So, 1 second, we see that Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold of Leiv Bezdin Masnei Aleim. So I says, no, Shiny Hassam. Really, he does believe in Leiv Bezdin Masnei Aleim, but there it was different. Is Lutzakanta B'Re'iyah. You could allow it go pasture and get a blemish. So since you can allow it to pasture and get a blemish, it'll be fixed that way. Then they say, okay, so don't redeem it when it wasn't yet blemished. But in general, they do believe that lev bezdin mas nalem. So when you separate nesachim for one carbon, it turns out this carbon's no good. So now you can use it for another carbon because the bezdin made a condition that it should be able to be used for another carbon if this one wouldn't work. Okay, continuing on with the laws of the carbon toda. Let's say a person consecrates a pregnant animal to be a carbon toda, and then the animal gave birth. So what's the status of the child of a toda? Vlad toda, the child of a toda. Or tmurasa. Let's say he has a toda, and he brings another animal, and he says this animal should replace the toda. So the halach is whenever you do tmura, both animals become holy. Or hifrish toda v'avda, he separated animal as a toda, got lost. Hifrish acheres tachta, so then he separated another one to take the place of the first, and then he found the first. So in all of these cases, only one of them is going to need the bread. So eina tuna lechem, the replacement toda, when you found the first, or the tmuras toda, or the child of the toda, doesn't need bread. He's going to bring on the toda sacrifice loaves of matzos mixed with oil. Ha-toda tuna lechem, that tells you that the toda needs bread. V'lo vlada, not her child. V'lo chilufa, not her replacement. the lo tmurasa, nor the swapped one, tuna lechem, do they need bread. Tanabana went in a brisa. Ma'omer, what's the meaning of the verse? Im al toda yakriv. It's to tell you the following. How do we know that if somebody puts aside a toda and then he loses it, and he makes a replacement, take its place, and then he finds the first, and now they're both standing, he can bring whatever one he wants, and whatever he brings will have the bread with it. That's what the verse says. Hatoda yakriv. The toda he will bring whichever one he wants. Maybe the other one will also need 40 loaves. That's what it says. Yakriv venu. He'll bring it. Echad. One has the loaves. V'lo and not both. So once you have a verse saying yakriv, it's saying you can bring whatever you want. How do we know that what we are including is that the child, the replacement, the swapped, gets brought, but not that it has bread? That's what the verse says. Im al toda. If on a toda, so al meaning something which is additional to the toda, also yakriv gets brought. Yalchu tunas lechem, maybe they should need bread. Tamaloma v'hikriv al zevach hatoda. He's going to bring on the slaughtered toda. V'hikriv chalos, he's going to bring chalos. Toda tuna lechem. The toda itself needs bread. V'lo vlada, but her child. V'lo chilufa, not her replacement. V'lo tzumurasa,